French President Emmanuel Macron is not the first world leader to have run afoul of US President Donald Trump, but he's certainly not taking it lying down. Trump fired the first broadside against Macron on Twitter earlier this week. He slammed France's military record, asked for more NATO funding and called trade between the two countries unfair. He ended his Twitter tirade with a familiar phrase, "Make France great again," he tweeted. It was a sharp turn in a relationship that seemed to have been all smiles. Well, now Emmanuel Macron has responded in a TV interview.
I think he's playing American politics, and I'll let him play American politics. I'm not in charge of that, and I think that is not what is expected of me by our fellow citizens. Simply, you have to understand that the United States is our historic ally, and will continue to be. It's the ally with which we take all the risks, with which we carry out our most complicated operations. But being an ally doesn't mean being a vassal state. And so, to not be a vassal state, we should not depend on them, especially on Americans. We have to strive more. We have to work more ourselves as French and European citizens.
Well, that was the French President Emmanuel Macron speaking there, and I'm joined now by our correspondent Stéphane de Vries in Paris for more on this. Good morning, Stéphane. It was quite interesting listening to that soundbite from Emmanuel Macron, a sort of alignment almost in some of the rhetoric coming from him and from Trump. I mean, both talking about working more, contributing more to NATO.
Yes, absolutely. It's since the beginning of Donald Trump's presidency, the American president has said that Europe should be able to defend itself and that it can no longer rely on American support as they did in the past 70 years. And actually the idea of Emmanuel Macron to start a European army is exactly what Donald Trump is supposed, well, it should please Donald Trump. But instead of that, I think the American president is now realizing that Europe is indeed going ahead with the creation of an European army, even though it's still very, very far away. But the idea is gaining ground. We've seen that this week in the speech by the German Chancellor Angela Merkel. She said in the European Parliament that she supported the idea of Emmanuel Macron. So basically, Donald Trump is getting what he asked for, but he doesn't really seem pleased by the fact that he's getting what he asked for.
And Stéphane, what kind of an effect does this war of words from the two leaders have on the relationship between France and the US?
Well, the relations between France and the United States have always been, well, I think we can use the word passionate. Of course, their century-old allies, France, actually financed the American War of Independence in the 18th century. So the bonds go very, very long back. And it's mainly a matter of personalities. Who is the president of the country? For instance, we all remember probably the feud between the US and France in 2003 over going to war in Iraq. Then Jacques Chirac was the president, and he didn't get really well along with George Bush at the time, the American president. So the relations have always been difficult, but it really depends on who is in charge. And I think that this is just one of the many rows. But since the countries love to hate each other, it will probably have no long-term effect. And by the way, Emmanuel Macron was not the only French politician who felt at unease with Donald Trump's remarks. This is what the government spokesperson had to say.
I will address these tweets in 2 words. Yesterday was November the 13th. We commemorated the murder of 130 of our fellow citizens 3 years ago in Paris and Saint-Denis. So I will reply in English. Common decency would have been the appropriate thing.
Well, we heard there from government spokesperson Benjamin Griveaux. Stéphane, all of this is coming at an interesting time, let's say, for Emmanuel Macron, an interesting time for French politics, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Donald Trump has a point by saying that the unemployment is still very high. And actually, this weekend, there will be a huge protest in the whole of France. It originally started by people who were angered by the fact that the price of gas was getting up, but now it seems to turn out into a national demonstration against the politics of Emmanuel Macron. So Emmanuel Macron is in very difficult times, and Donald Trump is just throwing some salt in the wounds. And I think he may have a point, but France is really not amused.